Greetings and welcome to another episode of Pops Collection. I'm Ron Tweedy, joined me as Pops, and today we saw it this weekend, and we're here to tell you what our first impressions are of The Batman.
The Batman. That is true. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Hope you've got your coffee. We've got ours, both of us. I would strongly suggest that if you haven't seen the movie and you choose to, you might want to have an extra cup of coffee. It's almost 3 hours in length.
It is, yeah.
Yes. And I have to tell you, my first impression, having your mother next to me,
Okay.
about 2 or 3 minutes into the movie, I was like, your mom's not going to like this.
Okay.
That was my first thought, my first impression. But I have to say that I was pleasantly wrong about the whole situation.
Huh.
By the time we got to the end, she liked it.
Wow.
Hard to believe, huh?
Okay.
Yes. So without doing any teaser or anything, what was your impression of it?
I think this might be the best Batman film ever made, and it actually might even be one of the best superhero movies ever made. Yeah, this movie is a masterpiece. It is, yeah, it's definitely something that I think anybody, that is even tangentially aware of the superhero film genre would, it's a movie that everybody should see, that's even, a casual fan of these kind of movies.
Would you also say, though, that it's maybe should have been a little bit higher than PG-13? Would you allow your 13-year-old to go see it?
Yeah, we did talk about that because, the boys are obviously, actually, even Piper's interested in watching it. And obviously this is a no-no for, for little ones.
Piper, definitely not.
Yeah. So we did talk about that. I do think that, my oldest, who's 14, I think he would be fine with it. And I do think, just given the personality and maturity level of my 11-year-old, I think he would be able to handle it too. So the thing is that the way the movie is shot, it's not the violent. It is a violent movie, but it is not a gory movie. The violence is there, but it's not gratuitous in a way. And I think that is part of the trying to stay true to the original vision of this character by Bill Finger and Bob Kane. It's unlike any other Batman movie, in my opinion, and that is a good thing. So yeah, that's my thought about it. So, but you are correct in that we didn't have a problem taking all the kids to see Spider-Man No Way Home. This, not so much. So even though they're rated the same, they're very different when it comes to the appropriateness of,
I would tend to agree with that statement.
Yeah.
And again, without getting into any details on the movie yet, I have to say that, it originally, this was almost a not made version, because originally it was going to be Ben Affleck, and he was writing, one of the writers of the story,
right?
And they started to change directions. He decided he didn't like the way that it was going. The new director,
Matt Reeves,
who, by the way, did an excellent job. He also wrote the script, and he decided to kind of break it away from the DCEU.
Yes, it's completely different. Yeah.
Right. And it kind of is part Long Halloween.
Yep.
Part year one.
Yep.
And it the movie itself kind of leans more towards the world's greatest detective than it does
Hmm.
the fantasy comic book slight part of it.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's kind of the big thing. So if you're going into this expecting a DCEU movie, you will be disappointed. But uh, I think what you'll get instead is something that's far more better to as a story when it comes to really distilling down who this Batman character is. Because I think a lot of times what ends up happening is that the character of Batman, since he's changed over the years so drastically, you can really have a different take on him almost completely. Like we talked about this last week with you had
Yes,
something as insane as Batman Forever, but you also have something a little bit darker, a little bit quirkier with um, the '89 Batman. So that to me, I think, is something that makes this movie really special. So that's pretty much it from a I think from a spoiler free. Want to make that demarcation here because we'll definitely get into spoilers from now, unless you have anything spoiler free you want to say.
uh, the only thing that I could really say that I think that what your mother pointed out was that the story was written so well that it was actually, because usually she says to me,
Yeah,
what's that about? Because I'll say, whoa, and then I'll say, oh, that character was in this,
yeah, yeah,
or something like that. But she could follow it.
yeah.
It's a movie that you could follow if you were not a Batman geek.
Yeah, yeah, and I again, I think that works in its favor. It's definitely an accessible movie. It's dark, but I do think that if they were able to win over my mom, that's saying something.
Exactly. And another thing that I thought of uh, for myself, and she kind of likened it to the times of today,
Okay.
some of the storylines.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
And the villains
Hmm.
were not these comic-y
Yeah.
things, penguin with a long nose. I have to say that the makeup
Uh-huh.
in this was done real well.
Agreed.
We had characters like the penguin
Yep.
and Falcone and
Yep.
Riddler.
Yep.
Nothing like anything in the comics,
Yes.
but nonetheless,
Well, I will.
very villainy. Very,
Yes.
very villainy.
I do want to make a special note about the Penguin in particular. That one of the comic book creators that I follow regularly, Graham Nolan, who he and Chuck Dixon created the character Bane, and he had a pretty good run on Detective Comics / Batman back in the '90s. They actually did get a credit at the very end for the design of the Penguin, because this is not the same Penguin as Burgess Meredith in the '60s show. It's not the same Penguin as right, exactly. And it's not. There was only one. Well, I'm not going to get into spoilers, but the
Yes, I agree. That one part.
Graham Nolan had he got credit for the design, and he re-envisioned Penguin in that way. So it was a different take, but it was there was precedent about it, about almost 30 years ago. So,
But I have to say that the makeup was
Yeah.
really, really good, because I sat there watching it for the longest time, and then all of a sudden it was like, wow, that's Colin Farrell. I mean, you couldn't tell.
yeah, everybody says that everybody I've talked to, like, they couldn't tell it was Colin Farrell. It was that good. So yeah, yeah, that's good. So
All
yeah,
right, so that's it for spoiler free.
all right, yep, okay, let's go into it. So
Okay, good.
yeah, I mean, to me, this movie, the only thing that I'll say, not necessarily, this is not a negative per se. One thing that this movie did make me feel, which I didn't expect to, is it made me feel really old. In two ways. In two ways, I'll tell you how.
Okay.
So the first way is that there is archival footage of just before the death of Thomas Wayne with a campaign ad, and that campaign ad for Thomas Wayne was 2001. So I'm like, daggum.
Yeah.
Yeah, that made me feel really old. What made me feel older, though, is that I had to do a little bit of math to figure this one out. But the one thing I'll say is that, and I probably could spend an entire hour talking about this part alone, but the score and soundtrack to this film is, I think, the best Batman score and soundtrack. It is
Absolutely.
It is so stinking good. Michael Giacchino, who we've known from other superhero films, some non-superhero films, he was able to capture the essence of the story, and he also kind of borrowed melodies and transformed melodies from two songs that existed before this. So for the first one, obviously, was Ave Maria, which is an old opera tune,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other one was Something in the Way by Nirvana. So this
Yes.
this is the part that makes it feel old, right? So
Yes.
that song was released on their Nevermind album in 1991. So that was 31 years ago, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I had to think about it, and I said, okay, now if I were just to do the math, that would be like if the Michael Keaton Batman movie, the first one, they decided to take a song from 1958. So that made me feel really old.
Wow. Yeah. If you think about it in that way, definitely. I know. And the way that the score was written and the way the songs were interlaced,
Yeah.
just so perfect for every part of that film.
Right.
I did not find too many spots where I stepped out for
No.
a second,
No. No.
because you were so wanting to know in what direction things were going.
And that's the other thing that I'll say of what makes this movie great, is that they captured the essence of what Batman really is. Because, a lot of other ones, it's like mass vigilante, fighting, punching bad guys, stuff like that. At its core, the core of this film, it is a detective story, and Batman's the world's greatest detective, and so that really brought out the essence of who Batman really is. He's not at odds with the police per se. They're not trying to completely, stop what he's doing. He's actually partnering with them in most of the movie, which to me is really refreshing, because all the time it's like, oh, we hate this mass vigilante, whatever. And so, yeah.
There were people, though, that did not care for him.
Right, but then we found out later on why that was.
Yes, we did.
And to me, that, again, is just perfect, the way they laid all of that out and set it all up.
Your mother said something as after we left the movie, we thought it best to watch it early.
Yes.
So by the time the 3 hours were up, it was lunchtime. So we went and had lunch. And as we were sitting there, and she was, saying how much she enjoyed the movie, see if you agree with this. She said that it's probably a guy movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
But a woman still could. Mm-hmm. It wasn't hard to follow.
No. And, that's the other thing about this particular version of Bruce Wayne, is that, a lot of times they want to make Bruce Wayne into, a little bit more of a socialite, where he has other people to play off of. And in this film, there's hardly any of that. He has it's basically only two people in his life are Selina Kyle and Alfred, and that's it. And Selina Kyle is a tenuous relationship at best. We see how rocky that is.
Yes, and the gentleman that played Alfred,
Andy Serkis, yeah.
Yeah, wasn't he the bad guy in Black Panther?
Yeah, he played Claw, and he also played Gollum in Lord of the Rings. So,
yeah, so there's so many it's interesting how other players,
Hmm.
again, we had Colin Farrell, and then the actor that played Falcone.
Hmm.
I remember him mostly from the Transformer movies,
Okay. Okay.
and he, was a totally different character. He really showed his acting prowess in this movie compared to what I
Yeah.
am used to seeing the type of character
Hmm.
that he portrayed. And again, and then we had Zoe Kravitz
Yep.
as Catwoman,
Right.
and
Yeah. Very true to the, I'd say, Long Halloween / Year One version of
yes,
Catwoman.
yes,
Very good. Yeah.
yes, and we did get the iconic Batman Catwoman kiss
Right.
that was kind of right out of the comics.
Yeah.
But if that was about all there was as far as romance goes,
Yeah.
through the whole movie,
Yeah.
it was truly almost a noir detective story.
Right, which makes it so good to me, and that's the other thing I'll say is that one thing I love about the film is that we talked about how, and I wonder how much of my reaction to this film is juxtaposed against the movie that we saw last week, because Gotham is filmed where you just have lots of dark colors and some reds and some blues here and there, but not a whole lot. And then the other part of it that really stands out to me is the technology that Batman uses in the film. It is at the same time both really high tech, but it seems also very analog to me. Like there's static in his little gadget where he uses to view things.
Yes,
He has to switch channels in order to get a better signal. I love that. That was so extremely well done.
yes,
I can't.
and that's again added, I think, to the realism of the movie itself.
Right. Yeah.
Again, every villain,
Yep.
it just looked like it was a real person, psychotic or whatever,
Sure.
just greed or um and what we got, the character, the guy that played the Riddler,
Uh huh.
he looked like he was wearing a S&M mask or something,
Hmm.
like a leather, he was wearing that leather mask, and it just seems to me like it was, you know something out of the vile forms of sex or S&M type of thing.
Okay.
I've just seen other crime shows where that's what they depicted. That mask was part, whenever they went into something like that, the character, usually the dead guy, had the mask like that.
Okay.
But what we saw, it again, like you said, Long Halloween,
Yeah.
it started on Halloween.
Right. It did. Yep.
And what I found was interesting, especially, was that he really wasn't this goofy character
Right.
that was okay. Try and catch me. I'm going to give you a riddle.
Right.
He was doing it, but for a different reason
Hmm.
altogether.
Yeah.
And he, as we found out later, the reason for all that.
Yeah.
But he was basically killing the corrupt people,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So that kind of, I guess, that is kind of like that show Dexter. He was like a serial killer that killed serial killers or something.
Sure.
Whereas this guy is a criminal, but he just wants to get rid of the corruptness.
Right.
So, and in this movie, Thomas Wayne
Hmm.
is depicted as a corrupt person,
That's right.
and therefore, the sins of the father fall to the son.
Right.
And your mom and I watched a show today where the one guy, he wasn't really a bad guy, but he made a mistake, and it's something that stuck with him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And we saw here that the Riddler portrayed Thomas Wayne as somebody bad, a corrupt individual.
Actually, I would go as to far as say that Falcone was the one that was responsible for all of that.
Well, we know that, but we only find that out later in the movie when Riddler gets to Thomas Wayne. He was actually he was going for Bruce, and that's where Alfred got hurt.
Yeah.
But anyways, I also found it interesting, kind of like year one, that when he went out on his motorcycle, he wasn't in costume.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of like year one,
Yep.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
How he still tried to do things without always hooding up or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing I will say is that Harvey Dent is noticeably absent from this film. I think that's a good thing because obviously it will give an opportunity for a second film to feature Dent. But it could have been really it probably must have been really tempting for them to get him to be involved as well, and that probably could have made the movie a lot less workable.
Yeah, probably a lot longer too.
Right, which didn't need to be. It was fine the way it was. So
shades of Zack Snyder,
yeah,
almost.
I guess, but to me, it's yeah, a good story, and I think the other thing that is what makes it a good story, and like I don't know if we'll probably revisit this movie when it comes out.
Oh yes,
on full release. And so I won't necessarily explore the entire topic to begin with, but I do think that the narrative of Bruce Wayne being disconnected from the legacy of his parents because of their death, and then he's fed a narrative that is sort of true but not all the way true to turn him against his parents, and then when he actually finds out what the truth is from Alfred, there's some bad stuff, but it's also on the balance. It's a more nuanced thing. What ends up happening is that there's this giant narrative that's created, kind of pit people against their ancestors and tradition, and to want to throw it all away or destroy it. When in reality, those people were good, and we need to honor them, and they made mistakes just like everybody does. Right.
Yes.
And I think that's really what at the core of the message of the film is. How there are grifters out there that want to sell you a false narrative, so you will, spark a revolution. And the reality is that, Batman stands for not chaos, but for making sure that justice is carried out. That's why, he still has in the film it's repeated, he has a no guns policy. He doesn't want to kill, he has a code, and he stays true to that code throughout the film.
Right. And see, that's we've actually watched a few different shows that is basically part of the theme.
Right.
And actually it was a group of superheroes that had to fight a very powerful villain.
Yeah.
That the only way to, as they thought, the only way to get rid of the villain, it was a parasite. So you had to kill the host in order to, so they would have to, their policy was not to kill, but they were stuck with that conundrum of having to kill, and how it changed them. And we got that in this movie when Batman told Selina Kyle, you don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
right.
And I think it was a perfect policy. And it's one of those things that I don't believe that, an eye for an eye thing, but I don't know how I would handle it. I think you really have to have, um, Christ strong in you to prevent yourself from doing something you shouldn't do like that. I
Well,
just don't know how, if I'm confronted with that, how I would react.
well, the difference is that, vengeance is something that God does do, but he has instituted authorities to do it properly. And so Romans 13 says specifically that the civil magistrate is God's avenger, right? He's the one who brings justice.
Yes.
And so when it says for us not to seek vengeance, it's because that's not up to us. We can get vengeance through the power of the state where God has ordained that. So we're not seeking personal vengeance. We're going to be seeking vengeance through the right channels. And that's I think what Batman is in this film, is that he's just kind of an extension of the the law at this point. He's working with the police, even though it's tenuous sometimes, but
Yes.
he's still, they're still involving him in that. And so to me, I think that's the difference, is that it's not about personal vengeance, and he says that too. That's the thing. He's not avenging his parents.
Yes. And but um that, I'm glad you brought that up. We were talking, somebody asked him in the beginning who he was,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, I'm vengeance.
Right.
And then later at the end, where the Riddler's cronies
Yeah.
are going to act out the end of his
Yeah.
plan,
Uh-huh.
he takes the Riddler mask off of one guy and he says, I'm vengeance.
Right.
And I think that is, I guess, a light bulb moment for the Batman character, that
Sure.
maybe he should try something different.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other part of it is, like, you can't, like, unless you're put there by God to do the vengeance, you shouldn't be doing it. That's the idea behind it. And
Yes.
I yeah, so I think that's really how we should be thinking about it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. Uh, they capture the Riddler,
Yep.
and he's in Arkham,
Yep.
and he wants to see Batman.
Right.
Now, do you think uh, when he started the conversation talking with Batman,
Yeah.
it sounded
Yeah.
like he had figured out who Batman was.
Right.
But then later on in that same conversation,
Right.
at the end of it, he said, that's the only guy we didn't get.
Right.
And then he felt that Batman was his partner.
Right.
So it kind of felt like, the way that they did the story, you were starting to think, oh, he knows who Batman is.
Right.
Right? Didn't you feel that way?
Well, yeah, that was intentional.
Yeah. But I mean, he obviously really didn't know who Batman was.
Right.
I don't think.
No, he doesn't.
No. And I also thought, which was a great thing too, at the end when Selina decides to leave town.
Yeah.
And they have that moment, and then you see them both driving the same way.
Yeah.
And going down all these streets and everything, and then all of a sudden they split off.
Right.
I thought that was like, I don't know if I can say anything bad about this movie.
Yeah, I don't either. Like I said, the only thing I said is it made me feel old, but that's, it's not their fault. That's not their fault.
How do you feel about did you do anything in looking up the little teaser at the end?
Yeah. So that is something, the URL that they do have a website that you put in. So if you do put the website in, it kind of brings up a prompt similar to what Batman did in the movie, and then it brings up a cipher. So obviously it's some sort of hidden message that you'd have to figure out how to decrypt. I'm sure somebody on the internet has already kind of figured it out, but yeah, it's one of those alternate reality type of things where they're trying to make the movie come to life, which is I think pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Did you attempt it or?
Well, I mean, I pulled up the website, but that was it.
Okay, I got you. That's a cool thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, somebody will figure it out, or
it's already been figured out, I'll bet you.
I'm sure. Well, I'm so tempted to see this movie again. How do you feel about that? Would
Yeah,
you see it again?
it's worth seeing again. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, definitely. Um, do you think that it's a movie that necessarily you need to see it on the big screen?
I think it certainly would enhance the experience, but I don't think it's necessary.
Right. I mean, because there are, especially, which I spoke with somebody else that felt that maybe it was similar to the Gotham TV series as
Okay.
far as how they did it,
Mm-hmm.
which I could see that
Yeah.
in some cases,
Yeah.
especially there in the final two seasons, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken.
Okay.
The
Like
bridge is blown up.
Yeah,
and
martial law. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, so
Yeah.
I could see that part of it there.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
but there were some pretty breathtaking explosions.
Yeah.
And we haven't even discussed it yet, but the Batmobile
Yeah.
in this one,
That's right.
I thought that was really intense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely, I think the best car chase scene in a Batman movie. The Batmobile itself, it's exactly how you would expect that particular Bruce Wayne to build a Batmobile. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yes, and you're so much so your mom loved that chasing where he came through
Yeah.
the fire.
Yeah, it was.
She
Yeah.
was like, "That was really good." You know your mom, right?
Yeah, yeah. Everybody I've talked to says that's definitely one of the highlights of the movies. I mean, it's just yeah, it's great.
Yes. So I'm gonna say if you haven't gone to see it yet,
Yeah,
you really should.
yeah. It's definitely, in my opinion, a must-watch. It's again, definitely not the typical Batman movie you would think of, and that's to its strength. It's at its heart a detective story, and it's pretty much like the best vision of Batman I think that has been captured on film, out of out of all of them.
I'm gonna say that you won't be disappointed if you go see it.
Right.
Definitely not. And one of the things I don't know, the trailers that you got, we did not get too many comic book trailers. We got, oh my gosh. Anyways, oh, we got the Doctor Strange trailer,
Yeah. Yeah.
but no Morbius trailer, which I thought they would because that's coming out really soon. As a matter of fact, I think next month.
Sure.
So I thought we would get something like that, but not really.
No.
The one thing that we did get, and I don't know if you got it, but they had a DC Warner Brothers
Yeah.
type trailer
Yeah, I saw
with
that. Yeah.
teasing you Black Adam,
Yep.
Flash, and
Yep.
a new
Yep.
Aquaman movie
That's right.
and the Batman. I seeing that, I was really kind of jazzed to see those movies.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to them.
Yeah.
How about you?
Definitely interested in the Flash one. Black Adam, fine. Aquaman. I don't know. I need to see a little bit more to really think about it, but definitely I think that.
Well, you did enjoy the Aquaman movie, right?
Yeah, yeah, I did. I don't know if I'd go back to it. How I feel about it, but it's, to me. We were talking about this in the car, like, what was, like, before this, what was, like, the best DC movie, and I said up to that point it was Shazam. So, to me, like, I think that, yeah, so I don't know, like, we'll see. But I think, like I said,
You really Shazam over Wonder Woman?
yeah, yeah, I do. I like Shazam better.
Wow.
Only slightly, but But
Well, good, good. Yeah, I know. And well, of course, you might change your mind once Super Pets comes out.
yeah, that's the other one that we saw. So we'll see how that one works out.
Yes, yes. Well, that one definitely kid friendly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that'll be good.
Okay, so I'm going to say we don't rate this one
Yeah, we'll wait till it comes out on disc.
on disc, and I'm going to say definitely though for all our listeners,
Yeah.
it's a must see. No question.
Agreed. Agreed.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
Anything else you want to discuss?
There's plenty of more to discuss, but we'll save it for the full review.
I would agree with that. Very good.
All right.
Okay.
Good. Well, thank you all for joining us this week for another episode of Pop's Collection. Feel free to leave us a comment. What did you think about the film? Should people go see it? And we'll talk to you next week. Goodbye and God bless.
Goodbye. God bless, and tell your friends.